Okay, so when you think of the story of creation, what comes to mind? Genesis 1, right? 7 days, light, land, sea, and done. But what if that famous story wasn't the end? What if it was just the beginning?
What if that core theme, God bringing order out of chaos, is actually the hidden engine driving the entire biblical narrative, from the very first family drama all the way to the great escape from Egypt? Today we're going to dive into a fascinating perspective that completely reframes these ancient stories. It argues that creation isn't some one-and-done event. Nope, it's an ongoing drama, and it unfolds in some of the most unexpected places you can imagine.
All right, first things first, we need to kind of adjust our focus. Let's look past that famous 7-day account for a second and start thinking about creation as a theme, a recurring idea, not just a single chapter.
The common view is that creation is the prologue. It's done, the stage is set, let the story begin. But this other view? It argues that the real work of creation, that divine project of bringing order and life out of chaos, is actually the central conflict of the entire story that follows.
So if this is such a grand cosmic theme, where does it all actually play out? Not in the stars or galaxies like you might think, but on a much more human and, frankly, a much messier scale.
See, the next stage for this creative work isn't about shaping planets. It's about shaping a people. And that story begins in the complicated, totally chaotic world of the first families of Genesis. I mean, just think about the stories in Genesis. They are jammed-packed with deception, rivalry, total dysfunction, in other words, social chaos. Take Jacob's family. You've got the bitter rivalry between his wives, Leah and Rachel, and then the deception between his sons that leads to Joseph being sold into slavery. It's a mess. This perspective argues that these family conflicts are the new battleground. God's creative work is about forging a cohesive community out of human turmoil, bringing order directly into relationships.
This quote really nails the point. These domestic dramas aren't just ancient soap operas. They're filled with a creational concern. That struggle to build a stable, loving family is seen as a direct extension of creating a stable, life-giving world. It's the same project, just on a different scale.
So, if God is working to establish order, you'd think there have to be rules, right? But remember, all of this is happening long before the 10 Commandments were ever given on Mount Sinai.
And this brings up a classic biblical puzzle. How could people be held accountable for their actions if the rules hadn't even been spelled out yet? Well, the answer seems to be woven into the very fabric of creation itself.
It's a concept called implicit law. Think of it like this. The world was created with a moral cause and effect built right in. Certain actions naturally promote life and order, while others inherently lead to chaos, not because of a divine thunderbolt, but because they go against the very grain of creation.
The difference here is crucial. Explicit law is, don't do this or I will punish you. Implicit law is more like, don't do this because it unravels the world around you. It's all about natural consequences. Think of Jacob's deception of his father. What happens? It leads directly to decades of family strife and exile. That's implicit law in action.
All right, this all builds to the main event of the Old Testament, the Exodus from Egypt. And when we look at it through this creational lens, the story becomes something way bigger than just a prison break. The narrative presents Pharaoh's Egypt as a system that stands completely against God's creative purposes. It's an oppressive, death-dealing empire that stifles life. So, to create something new, God must first dismantle the old chaotic order.
The story unfolds in 2 dramatic acts. First, there's this terrifying process of decreation, where the world of Egypt is pushed back towards pre-creation chaos. And second, there's an incredible act of recreation, where a new people are born from that chaos.
The plagues aren't just random attacks. They're framed as a terrifying mirror image of the Genesis creation story, but played in reverse. The plague of darkness, for example, isn't just a lack of light. It's a chilling return to the chaos before God said, "Let there be light." This isn't just punishment. It's a systematic undoing of creation.
This quote sums it up perfectly. When a human system, like Pharaoh's, becomes so opposed to life and order, it causes the created world itself to start to unravel. The plagues show that creation is not some static backdrop. It's an active system that reacts to human injustice.
But decreation is not the end goal. It just clears the stage for something new.
After Egypt's world is plunged into this watery, dark chaos, God performs the ultimate creative act.
The crossing of the Red Sea. I mean, it is the climax. It echoes that very first act of creation, separating the waters to bring forth dry land and life. Here, God again parts the chaotic waters, but this time to bring forth a new nation. It's a cosmic victory, the foundational moment where a people are literally created out of chaos.
So, what does this all mean? Well, it means the project isn't finished. Creation doesn't end at the Red Sea. In fact, the real work is just getting started.
Right after that spectacular creation of Israel, they are immediately thrust into the chaos of the wilderness, a place of disorder, scarcity, and confusion. And it is here that the hard work of creating an ordered society truly begins. And at the very heart of this new society is the tabernacle, which is described as a microcosm of creation. It's basically a miniature, perfectly ordered universe built to God's exact specifications, a tangible model of the harmony intended for the entire world, placed right in the middle of the desert's chaos. Okay, so let's recap the big points. First, creation is not just a story in Genesis 1, it's an ongoing process that defines the entire biblical narrative. Second, this process is a constant struggle between order and chaos, playing out in families, in nations, and in the cosmos itself. And finally, the story isn't just about God's work, it's an invitation for humanity to become partners in this project of bringing goodness and order to the world.
And that leaves us with a pretty big thought. If this whole story is one long project of bringing order, beauty, and justice out of chaos, then what chaos in our own world needs ordering? And what part are we meant to play in that creative work today?